Hello, this is Jennifer Simonetti Bryan, Master of Wine here at the Weekly Tasting, and this week we are doing a deep dive into Chianti Classico. Now, before there was Bordeaux, before Champagne got its bubbles, there was Chianti. And Chianti is an incredible wine. A lot of people don't realize it's not the name of the grape because we see a lot of names of grapes on American labels, Pinot Noir or Cabernet Sauvignon or Chardonnay. Chianti is the name of a region within Tuscany. And Sangiovese is the name of the grape. Sangiovese, translated from Italian, means blood of Jove, which is the ancient Roman version of the Greek god Zeus. So the head of the gods. So this is the blood of Jove. So you can tell, even from an ancient perspective, how important this grape variety was and is. It's the most planted grape variety, red grape in all of Italy. And also, it's really highly priced for its quality. Now, in terms of how it tastes, if you want me to give you an example to perhaps some grapes that you know, if you know Pinot Noir and you like its kind of skim milk kind of level of body and high acidity, and you know Cabernet Sauvignon with its, it's more like heavy cream, and it's got this real tannic bite, Sangiovese is probably somewhere in the middle. It's got a lot of red fruit that like you would see in Pinot Noir, but it does have a grip to it. Not as much as Cabernet Sauvignon, but it does have a grip, and it's got some high acidity, which makes it go incredibly well with food. So let's go through each of these wines and we'll decode everything for you. The first wine we have is a Chianti Classico. Now, what does the word Classico mean? Well, the area itself of Chianti was really highly prized for its wine. But in the 1930s, by that time, the region of Chianti expanded beyond the original historic delineation of the region of Chianti, and they wanted to make sure that the wine that came from this original historic area was separated out from the rest of the expansion of the region of Chianti. So they called it Classico. So Classico refers to this original historic region of Chianti. And they wanted to let everybody know that it was of higher quality. And really it was more of a anti-fraud mechanism. So making sure that it had, well, now the law is 80% Sangiovese and 20% other red grapes. Back in 2006, they actually prohibited any white grapes anymore because white grapes used to be allowed into Chianti to soften some of those rough edges, but they don't need to do that anymore because of viticultural and hygiene and a lot of great technology that has been developed in the vineyards and in the winery. So they don't have to soften it at all because the tannins inside the grapes from the seeds and the skins and stuff like that get truly ripe. But you can have foreign grapes, and in Italy, foreign grapes are Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. So you may see some Chiantis that have Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot as opposed to more traditional varieties such as Canaiolo or Ciliegiolo. There's a lot of Chiantis out there though that are 100% Sangiovese, and you can tell. So this first wine that we have here, it is so delicious. It's got a lot of red fruit on the nose and a lot of spice. And I've noticed the Chianti Classico has kind of a cinnamon spice, a brown spice to it. And it's got like this tea leaf kind of thing. Some people say tomato leaf, but I don't get tomato leaf. I get an herbaceousness there. Tomato leaf, I always, walking through my mother's tomato garden, you always remember what that smells like. So I just say herbaceousness, but on the palate, it's very high in acidity and it's very well knit. What do I mean by that? I mean that where the acid, the tannin, the fruit level, and the alcohol, everything kind of meshes together really well. It's all well knit and integrated. So this is a delicious wine. So the second wine we have is a Chianti Classico Riserva. What does Riserva mean? So they both come from the same region. What we see a difference here though is in the amount of aging. They both come from Chianti Classico, but the Riserva means exactly what it sounds like it means. It's a reserve. It's not necessarily higher quality than any Chianti Classico out there or any Chianti out there, but it does mean that it's been aged longer. And when you see that, you can actually taste that in the wine. If you taste this wine, you can tell it's got a lot more spice. And actually this one's 2015, the first one was 2016, but you can tell it's got a lot more spice to it. It's got the tannins on it are softer. They've got little rounded edges, so it has an elegance to it as well. But you still have that cherry fruit coming through. It's so beautiful, and on the palate, it's even more well integrated than the first one. I mean, so you're going to see a higher level here, and you're going to taste the difference that the oak does make. The next two wines in our flight of Chianti and doing a deeper dive is two wines from the region of Chianti, not Chianti Classico, but the expanded area of Chianti in two subzones, two subregions. One is Chianti Colli Senesi, and the fourth wine is Chianti Colli Fiorentini. Oh, I always get tongue-tied with that. So these two subregions couldn't be more different, and you're going to taste the difference between these wines. And I have you tasting them, third and fourth as opposed to, the first and second, even though they're much easier going wines, because I want you to taste the difference between them. Putting them first, you might not go back to the first one, be able to taste it. But Colli Senesi is a very large region, a bit east and also south of the region of Florence, and it has a lot of beautiful fruitiness. And it doesn't require that much long aging either. So in order to put Colli Senesi on the label, you have to, at minimum, age it for 6 months. And so this is the lighter, fruitier version of Chianti for the Chianti subzones than others. And you can taste that in the wine. It's got some spice to it. And I find in general that Chianti, as opposed to Chianti Classico, Chianti is more of the rugged, handsome brother of Chianti Classico. Chianti Classico is more elegant, more refined, and the Chianti on its own, in terms of its palate, is a bit more rustic, a bit more rugged. Always reminds me of like a lumberjack, a little stubble on. So hopefully that, entices some of the ladies to try this wine, but you guys aren't going to be that interested, I suppose. But this wine does have a little bit of rusticity, and what I mean by that, it's a little bit more rough in its tannins, but it's got some spice to it as well. And it's not as elegant, but you are going to see that fruit coming forward, and you're going to like this wine. And this one is one that you can serve earlier in the evening, more with the first course and with starters than, let's say, with the Chianti Classico Riserva. The fourth and last wine we have is Chianti Colli Fiorentini. It's also higher up in the mountains. So it's higher up in altitude, it's higher up north, so you can taste the acidity, but it also has a richness. When you have a wine that is planted on soil that is higher up in elevation, we talked about how the skin to pulp ratio goes down, but we also have better drainage in the soil as well. So that concentrates the berry, and so you're going to taste a higher weight in the Colli Fiorentini than in the Senesi. And so hopefully you can taste the difference between that, and then go back to the Chianti Classico and the Chianti Classico Riserva to make sure that you can really identify these wines blind. Now, I'm going to give you a pop quiz. All right, I know I haven't given you a pop quiz before, but hopefully this is something that you will like. So the first is a true and false. Well, they're both true and false questions, so let's see how you do. The first question: you can have a Chianti Classico Riserva, but you cannot have a Chianti Riserva. True or false? It's false. We only went through Chianti Classico Riserva here, but you can have the word Riserva on the label regardless of whether it comes from the region of Chianti Classico or the broader region of Chianti. So Riserva just means it's been aged longer. In order to, for Chianti, it's longer than, Chianti Classico is longer than Chianti, but Riserva just means it's been aged longer. So hopefully you did well on that question. I'm very proud of you. Now, here's the second question. True or false? The region of Colli Fiorentini is not in the region of Chianti Classico. True or false? It is true. Chianti Colli Fiorentini, again, a tongue twister. Chianti Colli Fiorentini is not within the region of Chianti Classico. In fact, it's north of Chianti Classico. So hopefully you did well on my little pop quiz there. If you didn't, you can always go back, taste the wines again. That's the wonderful thing about studying wine. And I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And until next time, cheers.